Today we want to start the show talking about the Pac-12, and again, maybe it is the football gods coming back, but it certainly feels like the Pac-12 is dominating college football. We're going to talk about TV ratings coming up, but when you are Colorado and Nebraska and you damn near draw as much as Alabama and Texas did, that is an accomplishment for the Pac-12. And you may say, hey, that's going to be the Big 12 next year. But right now, it's the Pac-12. And the question that we've been contemplating now for a couple of weeks, is this version of the Pac-12 the best college football conference in the country? And I don't even know that it's debatable at this point. When you look at the performance that Oregon put in Lubbock, sorry to all of our Texans on the show today, but you look at the performance that Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks put in against Texas Tech in Lubbock. That's an impressive win. You look at what USC has done, and don't look now, and Jake, I'm sure that this is going to upset you as I say this out loud. USC's defensive metrics actually look like they are dramatically improving, albeit against not the best talent in the world, but they are dramatically improving the last 2 weeks. I also think that Michael Penix, as much as he did come back to earth this past weekend, Washington looks good. Obviously, the Utes, without Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe, they are 2-0. This is an impressive start for the Pac-12, but Jake, do you agree? Is the Pac-12 the best conference in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think top to bottom, it's still, it has the most quality in it. I mean, obviously, the Big 12 with Texas has something to say. The SEC's got something to say. Obviously, the Big 10. But, I think that the Pac-12, top to bottom is the most quality conference still. Yes. There are other teams in other conferences that are better than the best Pac-12 team. You can make a case if you're a Longhorns fan that you guys are better than SC, or, that Georgia's better than SC, or Ohio State. Nobody in the ACC is better than SC, right? So to me, it's very much a thing where in the Pac-12's last year of existence, they are, seemingly the best college football conference in the country. And I think that, whether it's Washington and Penix, I mean, if he's having an average week, I'll take 43 points. Anybody not taking 43 points out of your offense and your starting quarterback, because I'm taking that. I think Utah is still the biggest question mark of the top teams in the conference. This game they're playing with Cam Rising, I don't understand why it continues. Now, obviously, I think you got Weber State this coming week. That's a gimme. You're going to beat up on them, no problem. Good opportunity for Nate Johnson to start a game. All right, cool. But when we get to, Pac-12 competition, when we get to the best of the best, I would expect Cam Rising to play. But now I have questions about, hey, what kind of Cam Rising are we going to get? Because now he's missed significant time. So we'll see about that. But, I look at this Bo Nix performance in Oregon versus Texas Tech. That was a big win, to go in there, win on the road. That's impressive stuff. Oregon State had UC Davis, but still it's 55-7. SEC fan is used to this kind of stuff. Hey, we're way better than everyone we play. We're putting up 50 plus. We're controlling the game. Just is what it is. So when I look up and down this conference schedule, dude, Colorado. Not only did you draw one of the top TV audiences of the week, you handled Nebraska in the second half. Wasn't close. Dominated that team. So, yeah, I think the Pac-12, it's kind of difficult to say that the Pac-12 is not the most talented, the best, the most efficient at winning football games, top to bottom conference right now of the Power Fours. And yes, I said Power Fours because the conference doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, this position the Pac-12 is in. And if we look at Pac-12 power rankings, I don't have any doubt that USC and Washington are the two best teams in this conference. Is Utah better than Oregon right now? Man, I think that's an awfully difficult thing to say, that Utah is better than Oregon, because Oregon is at full strength with Bo Nix offensively. Cam Rising hasn't played a snap. So I think I would put Oregon third there, behind Washington. But it's wild to me that you have a lot of media members putting Colorado fourth in the Pac-12. I don't see how in the world you can put Colorado. And yes, it's 2 wins, and they are 2 very good wins. how can you put Colorado ahead of a dominant Utah team, especially with the way that Utah's defense has performed so far? I think it's all hype.
Well, I just don't think that Utah has been like in the Florida game. Okay, yeah, sure. You beat Florida. You handled them. Absolutely.
Certainly.
But I don't think that this Baylor game was dominant by any stretch of the imagination. I think you made plays defensively. You expect guys like Cole Bishop to perform. Utah's defense played well, but the idea that this game in Waco came down to the last play is crazy. I mean, again, it's this whole quarterback thing. If Cam Rising's playing, this is 35 points. This isn't 20, right? So that's why I think Colorado is ahead of Utah in the power rankings, because, again, Colorado is out here putting up 36 after they put up, 50-something?
Yeah.
I just think that Colorado has been the flashier team. Colorado has much more momentum. It kind of feels like, and again, I know it's crazy to say, but it kind of feels like Utah is sort of doing the best they can with what they have to work with without Cam Rising and Brant Keithley.
And
I
see,
think that's tough.
I'm not willing to put flash ahead of substance. That's my biggest issue with Colorado. And I love Coach Prime, and I love, what Shedeur and Hunter, and I love what that entire team is doing. But it's all flash right now. And yes, I believe that Shedeur Sanders should be one of the top Heisman candidates right now. And yes, I believe that the offense has staying power. You win championships with defense. And I think that Colorado's defense has got a lot to prove that they can play at the top of this conference. They have not seen nearly the best that the Pac-12 has to offer. And I think that they're not as good as Utah, certainly. I don't think the bigger question is Colorado or Washington State. I think that is really close. I think that is a shootout game. After that, I don't know what to make of Oregon State right now. UC Davis does not impress me. Like that win, hey, that's great. You're playing lower level teams. But I don't know that when October rolls around, that when November rolls around, that Colorado is better than Oregon State. In fact, I think I'd be pretty confident in saying that they won't be better than Oregon State.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the questions about the defense, obviously are legitimate. It's true. You haven't played the best that the Pac-12 has to offer. But, look, I just think that people are confident in Colorado's ability to score. I have no doubt that Colorado can hang offensively, can hang with SC. I think Shedeur Sanders' ability to run away from people and then throw it down the field is elite. Now, he's not as good as Caleb Williams, certainly, right? Caleb Williams is better at it than Shedeur is, but I think Shedeur's first year coming into the game, I like what I see. And I think that's why Nebraska lost that game so handily. They couldn't tackle the guy. And so, is Colorado going to go out and beat SC? I don't know. Probably not, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to give SC everything they can handle, because, again, and I know, hey, stats say SC's defense is better. Show me. Shut down a high-powered offense. Show me that you can handle Shedeur. Show me that you can trick him, that you can do what Texas did to Jalen Milroe, right? Show me that you can do those things.
Well, I don't even know that that's a fair comparison. I think Jalen Milroe is a very interesting. Did you guys see he got a huge NIL deal that popped off today? Like, I think Jalen Milroe's not prepared to play football at this level. I think Shedeur Sanders is a Heisman Trophy candidate. My only questions about Colorado are going to be how long their defense can hold up and what happens when Hunter gets hurt, because that's coming. You don't play hundreds of snaps a week and think that you're not going to get hurt. I think it is absolute lunacy to have him playing that many snaps offensively, because he is a dominant player defensively. To have him playing that many snaps is wild to me. But hey, that's why I'm a talk show host and not a football coach. And I look at some of the other things, like you look at the Big 12 versus the Pac-12. Who is right now the best team in the Big 12? I don't. Is anybody going to argue it's Texas?
No.
I think it's Texas by a lot. I think the gap is massive. I don't think it's even close. I think K-State is a distant number 2. If I had to say it right now today, I'd have to pick Kansas probably 3rd. I think, Oklahoma's a really interesting question. I see everybody's got Oklahoma in the top 5 in the in the Big 12. I don't know if I'm convinced of that. I don't know if that offense can. I don't know if that offense can hold up. I know that UCF without John Reese Plumlee is screwed. That you're not recovering from that loss.
Facts.
I'd have pushed UCF to the top 5 in this conference before his injury. Early here in the season. But I also wonder about TCU. I'm not ready to throw dirt on top of TCU at this point. 3 weeks into the season, I'm not ready to do that. Obviously, the Colorado loss exposed you quite a bit. Hey, and I'm down with that. Obviously, you're going through changes, especially in offense. Hey, I'm down with all that. I'm not the guy throwing dirt on top of TCU. I am not. I think that this is going to be a completely different team a month from now. In the middle of October, TCU is going to be a far better team than they are now. I have zero faith in Texas Tech to bounce back here, although here we are today, and what happened in Lubbock today? Yeah, they signed one of the top wide receiver talents in the country.
Hey, guys.
I mean, unbelievable. Turned down Texas, turned down A&M, and is going to Texas Tech, which is a huge win for Joey McGuire. Huge win. But Tyler Shuck is a huge problem. As big of a win that is, Tyler Shuck's just as big a problem. He is what ails Texas Tech's offense right now.
Yep.
And until you change that, I don't put Texas Tech ahead of the Baylors. I don't put Texas Tech ahead of, are they ahead of Iowa State? I think they are. Are they ahead of, certainly not TCU. Certainly not, I don't know, Texas Tech or UCF?
Probably Texas Tech.
Without Plumlee, I think it's Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Right? But Oklahoma State? Well, Oklahoma State doesn't have a quarterback.
Yeah, still a nice win, though. I mean, still, and I know it's Arizona State. I know that that's a troubled program, if you will. But I still think that, that's a solid win. I mean, again, there were questions as to whether you were going to win that game or not when you went out to the desert. So I was pretty happy with what I saw at Oklahoma State. I agree they need to figure out a quarterback because you can't play 3.
You know the team that I don't think any of us have an idea on? Who is Iowa State? I know it's wild, and you think I'm probably stupid. How bad is Iowa State? You know who else we don't know a thing about? Who's Cincinnati? And you know that I'm a huge Satterfield guy.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't know who Cincinnati is at this point. Emory Jones, I mean, has there been a more refreshing performance at quarterback in this conference other than Emory Jones in the Big 12 this year? I think I could argue he's one of the better quarterback stories in the league. Yeah, and I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the Big 12, generally speaking, has a good bit of talent in it at quarterback. I mean, there are guys all around this league that, what could be a problem for most defenses. But I think the difference is that you have teams like, Texas and Oklahoma and even Baylor. Throw Baylor in there, right? That all have different reasons for why they need to win right now. I mean, obviously Texas and Oklahoma want to go out on a high note. Obviously, Oklahoma's looking to put this Art Briles thing behind them.
Good luck.
So they're going to be motivated. And obviously Texas with this big win on the road is going to be motivated to try to get into the college football playoff, which I think they got a good shot to do as long as, nothing goes sideways and you handle your business. But even like Baylor losing this game to Utah. Yep. Like if you don't have incentive to win now, if you ain't got motivation now, I don't know what it's going to take because at this point you have to think that Dave's coaching for his job.
Yeah, I don't know if the bottom of the conference is where I always go when we talk about strength.
Yeah.
Is West Virginia better than Iowa State? Is Houston the team that we saw lose to Rice, who dug themselves a massive hole to start that game? Is Houston a good team or a bad team? Because right now I think you got to put them in the bottom 3 teams. I think Iowa State, West Virginia, and Houston have to be in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State or BYU? Well, BYU because they have a better quarterback, and I don't think Iowa State's got a very good quarterback right now.
Yeah.
He threw a terrible pick 6, man. My God. Every time I feel like I want to say something nice about Iowa State, something stupid like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Who's BYU right now? Is BYU a top half of the Big 12 team right now?
I I mean, I don't think we can confidently say that yet. I think that we need to see if BYU can figure out how to run the football. I think they deserve a lot of credit for the adjustments in the offensive game. Obviously there were a ton of questions after the 14-point performance, and then you threw a 40, and answered some of those questions. Now, obviously wasn't against some premier Big 12 team, but I think that if you show that better play calling opens the offense and allows Keaton Slovis to get the ball down the field, what does that look like against a legit defense? What does that look like against a more competent team? So yeah, I mean, I think BYU still has to prove they're a top half of the Big 12 team, but I think they're pushing.
You need to run out some healthy wide receivers, by the way.
I would agree with that.
Let's get crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe Cody Epps, an NFL receiver, needs to play a game for BYU before we figure out who their offense is.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I mean when I say they deserve credit for the adjustments they made. I mean, again, you looked unimaginative. You looked boring. And then you come out and it's like, oh, we're pushing. We're going down the field. Like, things are great. And now everyone wants to complain about the run game. So I think they just got to find that balance. And as I say every single day on this show, like the balance between the pass game and the run game depends who you're playing. I mean, again, if you're going to play a team that's got a stout front four, you're probably not going to run as much. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I am really curious to see. Like the Oklahoma schools, Oklahoma State doesn't have a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I think all three of those dudes, Gunnar Gundy has looked at times terrible. And at other times, he's looked like their most competent quarterback. Like,
because it's garbage.
I don't know who your number one there is. I don't know. The SMU game for Oklahoma, I think they got exposed offensively. Because I don't believe that SMU is a good team. I think they're competitive. They're not good.
Flash.
They're not good. SMU is not somebody who you should be like, well, it was SMU. We had to fight. Well, that tells me something about you, not about SMU. You're Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And the Art Briles thing, listen, I think this is a bigger story in Norman than we know, because the Norman, Oklahoma Big 12 media base is talking a lot about that situation. And I think Mr. Levy may find himself out of a job. Honest to goodness.
Man, you think it'll go that far?
Yeah, I think that display post game really hurt him.
Yeah.
I was really, really disappointed.
He was a little more aggressive than I thought he'd be. He was a little more brash than I thought he'd be about it.
Yeah, he wanted to just write that off, and I don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that. But I think there is no doubt that Texas by far is the best team in this conference. I think K-State's number 2, and then I think Kansas is 3. And it's no surprise those are the 3 best quarterbacks in the league.
Yep.
There's no surprise
100%.
at all. And I think when we're talking about what Jalen Daniels did for Kansas, again, nobody's talking about that kid. Nobody. And I don't think that Jalen Daniels, I don't think that Devin Neal, I don't think those guys get the credit that they deserve, because what I've seen from Jalen Daniels this year, he's a better quarterback than I thought he would be this year. Mm-hmm. You knew there would be growth. You thought when you looked at him specifically, you thought there would be growth and development. This is far more than anybody thought.
Yeah.
He looks like a better polished quarterback to me right now. And I think those 3 teams, and then it's everybody else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that, whether it's the Big 12 or the Pac-12, the bottom half of your conference has to continue to get better. And I think the Big 12 is going through this thing where you've just expanded, you just added these new brands, and they're trying to prove themselves. Again, it's the old BYU conversation, right? Can BYU be bowl eligible? How far can you take it in year one? And I think that, obviously we're going to get Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC next year asking that same question. But now we get to sit here and say, yeah, dude, Texas is SEC good. Texas can go out and beat Alabama, can go out and at a minimum compete with Georgia. Can they beat Georgia? I don't know. You have to prove that. But you can definitely compete with Georgia. And that's why I say I think that the Big 12 has the hammer as far as best team. But I think that the Pac-12 overall, top to bottom, is a better conference.
Yes.
There are good teams all over the board that can beat you on any given Saturday. And I think that's what's tough about the Pac-12.
And while you talk about the SEC, I am not sold on Georgia. I know. I should just not say it out loud.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I cannot believe that they've given up points to UT Martin and Ball State. Those are two terrible teams. They looked disinterested in both of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that South Carolina, I think it's South Carolina this weekend is some huge fight for them. I'm not saying that. But at some point, this slow start BS is going to come back to get Georgia.
Yeah. Yep.
And when I look at the East, they're going to run away with the Florida is an awful football team. I mean, an awful football team.
Because it's garbage.
And South Carolina is not much better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Vandy. That division's over. The biggest question I have is Auburn capable? What is LSU? How do they bounce back? How far off is Alabama right now? Is Jalen Milroe, is he an October, November blossom? Or is he
better be.
Or is he just going to be this dude who at times looks ready and at other times looks like he just doesn't know that he's a football player?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he was in over a set in the Texas game. And I think that, that was really surprising. That's something that we don't see that type of incompetence out of Alabama, generally speaking, and certainly at the quarterback position. And I think that, Alabama hasn't had that reliability so far this year. And I think that's what's tough. Typically, Nick Saban, even as a defensive guy that Nick Saban is, can go out and rely on a field general of a quarterback to go out and make some things happen. And they don't have that right now. And I think that ultimately is why you lost to Texas and why you got your season started on the wrong foot. And I'll be very curious to see what happens as they go through their SEC schedule. And are we going to continue to see 50, 60-point performances? Or is it more of a struggle? Is this one of those years where Alabama is just not really in the picture?
Well, we'll find out. Let's get your thoughts in here on the Monty Show. As always, we are ready for some buckshot. A big, 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 big day. Played golf this morning. Actually shot a 1 over. I got new clubs from PXG. Shot well, the new shafts. No, I'm not going to talk about the problem. But the issue is I'm a high right fader with my driver. I got fitted from PXG. Got super stiff shafts and was bombing the ball today. It was amazing. And, thanks to our good friends at Bucked Up, I had a clear mind when I did it because I took a buckshot for breakfast. I'll have one right now. Yes, sir. 200 milligrams of caffeine. Mental clarity. That's the thing about buckshot. Get to buckedup.com right now. Use the promo code Monty20. Get 20% off your purchase at checkout at buckedup.com. Just search. Use the magnifying glass, and search for buckshot.
Do it.
Totally restocked this week. Every flavor's available. Hook it up right now. Buckedup.com. The best products with the best ingredients, and they do exactly what they tell you they're going to do. They have a great deal running on their whey protein isolate right now. Hook it up, buckedup.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. Stephen Smith, first one in for $20. Thank you, Stephen. It's so sad to see a conference fall apart. I'm assuming you're talking about the Pac-12. Over a belief that the alliance would stabilize the Pac-12.
That's not why the Pac-12 fell apart, bro.
I don't know that I can agree with that. But that was false hope to believe in such a thing. It shouldn't have come to this. Well, I mean, candidly, I don't believe that the Pac-12 fell apart because of the alliance that never was an alliance.
Yeah, what alliance are we talking about?
There was a handshake agreement, and that doesn't mean a damn thing. It wasn't worth a thing because there was no contract and nothing was on paper. The Pac-12 fell apart from malfeasance and just really poor management. That's all that was. You're looking at a situation where if you'd have put the Pac-12 network on any major television provider, I don't know, like DirecTV, we're not having this conversation. If Larry Scott, the former commissioner of the Pac-12, who told us he was talking to Google, he told Jake and I point blank, we're talking to Google. If he had actually talked to Google and gotten a deal done, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Don't lie to me.
It wasn't the troubled alliance that never was an alliance. It was the guy trying to make an agreement without anything in writing in George Kliavkoff, so there never was. George Kliavkoff is a failed commissioner. again, and again. Not only did he watch USC and UCLA walk out the door, he never delivered a TV contract. And frankly speaking, his only job was to deliver a TV contract, and he didn't even do that. The Pac-12 didn't fail, and I don't believe their failure had anything to do with the alliance. I think they failed because they couldn't put themselves on TV regularly. That really, to me, is the bottom line.
Yes.
And if they had figured that out with DirecTV or Google, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, but they didn't. And so now we're here. And now Oregon State and Washington State are going through court Battleville, and we're getting things figured out.
Yeah, and I think we like to make a lot of assumptions as sports fans. We like to assume that because we don't like something, that we can just throw shit against the wall, and it doesn't. You guys, there is some very simple facts.
Mm-hmm.
It either happened or it didn't. Right? This alliance never happened.
Facts.
There never was an alliance. So while I agree it was an embarrassment, to say it failed, it never got started, so there was nothing to fail. If you were going to seriously work together, the alliance, if you were seriously going to work together, why didn't you put it on paper? Why didn't you sign a contract? Why didn't you memorialize the terms and agreements? Well, because you never agreed on anything, in my opinion.
Facts.
I think you shook some hands and said, hey, this is going to be really cool to have a press conference where we talk about how we're going to be an alliance. And then it fell apart before it ever got started.
Yeah, I mean, it's a marketing ploy, is it not? I mean,
Yeah.
oh, wait, we're gonna create an alliance with the Big Ten and the ACC, and we're gonna feel like, hey, this is really gonna help us for travel stuff and all these other things. And you just didn't have anything. And I think it epitomized the bad business practices of the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I like we in the comment section before the show, Big Bad Brass Balls was running out a bunch of complete nonsense about how Disney got pounded by Charter. And this is one of those things again. I look at this Pac-12 conversation, I cannot tell you how many people are like, oh yeah, they didn't win, they didn't get into the college football playoff, so the conference failed. No, that's not why the conference failed.
No.
Had nothing to do with that. You know, like you have this situation with Charter and Disney, and because somebody doesn't like ESPN, and we talked about this the other day on the show.
Yeah.
Because people don't like ESPN, they're like, oh yeah, ESPN is the reason that people are losing. Like they were talking about how people are losing their cable because of ESPN. It's like ESPN's not the reason people don't have cable on Charter and Spectrum.
Yeah.
Spectrum, the whole reason that the Spectrum-Disney dispute happened, Spectrum wanted to be able to sell rights and advertising to all of the Disney streaming properties and not pay Disney any money for that. And Disney said, no, we're not doing that. Sorry, not going to happen.
Who could blame them? Why would you?
So they pulled their carriage off of Spectrum and Charter. And then what do you know? ESPN, Disney Plus, like all of the streaming from the Disney family, all of a sudden, a deal got done. It's on an elevated tier. Disney keeps all the rights to put all the advertising on their own streaming platform. Oh. They gained 400 to 500 million new subscribers. Oh, revenue from those new subscribers annually. Do you guys understand how much money that is for Disney? Never mind. Anyway, I understand why people don't like ESPN on some limited level. I get it. But that doesn't mean that ESPN's the problem. The alliance had nothing to do with the Pac-12 failing. Nothing.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like, I look at this story today with Mac Brown and the NCAA, and the NCAA saying that, you know, they got death threats. They didn't get death threats because of Mac Brown. The NCAA got death threats because the NCAA doesn't care about student athletes. They care about making money. And the NCAA, if you didn't hear this story, the NCAA today said that they believe that the rhetoric from Mac Brown last week created an atmosphere where death threats and threats of violence came from that.
Right.
And they are saying that they got these death threats because of a kid named Tez Walker.
Yeah.
at North Carolina who was denied eligibility. And granted, he did not play the transfer portal game properly. And North Carolina and Tez essentially went through a process with the NCAA, and the NCAA ruled against him. And Mac Brown came out and absolutely crushed the NCAA. And the thing that I say is, okay. So was Mac Brown wrong in what he said? Was Mac Brown the reason that people put death threats against, supposedly, because I'm not also 100% on board with this idea that Mac Brown's statement, came out and caused death threats and threats of violence. Sorry, man.
I think it's a reach. I think that's strong to say that.
I am not buying this.
Yeah.
And I don't care. And I'm trying to find Mac Brown's words explicitly, but I don't care if you are upset about Mac Brown. Mac Brown was right when he said, shame on you. Mac Brown was correct when he said that you don't care about the welfare of the kids that you are charged with protecting. That's absolutely correct. Mac Brown, I think, spoke truth to the NCAA, and it pissed off the NCAA. And I'm not saying that they made this up, because would it really be such a stretch? Would it really be such a stretch for somebody to threaten the life of somebody at the NCAA? No, it would not.
No.
But I don't buy for a second that Mac Brown saying they've messed up so many things as it relates to college football, and now their failures have negatively impacted the life of one of our own. I can't begin to understand how this happened. The decision makers at the NCAA on the committee should be ashamed of themselves for doing this to a young man. I completely agree with Mac on that. I think it's hysterical that you're saying that these kind of statements are where death threats came from. I don't believe that for a second. But again, what do? We play these games where it's, Shedeur Sanders isn't a Heisman Trophy candidate. Why? Yeah, I don't know. He just isn't.
Come on.
Have you guys looked at the Heisman watch list? Shedeur Sanders is not it. It's amazing. When you go and look at the people who will decide the Heisman Trophy, most of them do not have Shedeur Sanders in their top three. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
How's it even possible? The best story in college football. He's dominant, 510 yards. Not on the list.
Yeah.
2-0, not on the list. And why is that? Because they'll find a reason to punish Deion Sanders for something. That's my belief. Or whether it's Charter versus ESPN or Mac Brown causing death threats. I don't believe that people want the truth. I think we as sports fans in particular, we like the sports wash stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, we want to lean on what we already believe, which is like, hey, it's like what we talked about yesterday, right? Oh, well, it's some, quote unquote legend in sports, so he could never do heinous things in his football program. It's ESPN, so there's no way they would ever be a good company. Oh, well, it's Mac Brown, and for whatever reason you hate Mac Brown, so now all of a sudden he's causing people to allegedly send death threats. Like, that's what we do in sports,
I think the NCAA sports washed this without a doubt, just flipped it around. They said Mac Brown spoke out against us. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, we got death threats because of that statement.
Well, then, the other infamous thing with this whole situation with Tez Walker and UNC is that the NCAA is saying that, you can't have it both ways, right? Can't play both sides of the fence, meaning, hey, you Mac Browns of the world voted to have the rules with the portal the way they are, meaning, hey, if you want to transfer more than once, you got to get a waiver. And now you're upset we're denying waivers. And I just think it's a classic thing of what you said. Hey, the NCAA wants to have control and they want to make money. And that's what they do. Yep.
And the Tez Walker situation was a hardship claim The NCAA doesn't want to tell you that either. Like, it's frustrating to me. Cleveland rocks for $5. How about the NCAA officials having credible death threats against them for not allowing Tez Walker to play? Sad. I don't believe that they necessarily do. I would like to see that in writing.
Yeah, I mean, where's
I would
the
like
proof?
to have you prove it.
Yeah.
That to me. But
that's a strong thing to say. I feel like the whole death threats thing, like people aren't taking that seriously. Like you're quite literally saying that Mac Brown is partially responsible for creating this environment of, we'll just call it negativity, and that's why people are sending death threats, dude. Matt, like Mac Brown, Nick Saban, like the legendary coach that isn't scandal ridden, dude, can say these things and get away with it. And you know why? He's still got a job and everything's good? Because he's right. He's right.
But I also think it goes back to the Mel Tucker situation at Michigan State.
Perfect example.
Michigan State allegedly knew and didn't do anything about it. Right? I go back to the Levy situation with Art Briles at Oklahoma. You thought that was okay. It's not okay. Would anybody blame Oklahoma if they fired Jeff Levy? I wouldn't. But we can't say that. Oh, you're making too much out of it. No, we're not making too much out of it. Salty Drunk. Hello, my friend. There seems to be so much off-field politics in college football.
Oh, 1,000%.
Absolutely.
1,000%.
Absolutely there is.
Yep.
J-Rod says the NCAA death threats are the result of the toxic culture we currently live in. If they are in fact true, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. Raider Mark, again, those G5 schools have the ability to add $260 million in facilities and have held their own consistently against power programs. Okay.
What does that have to do with?
I don't know. Jaron Eccles, no respect for little old Colorado, even though they have earned it the first 2 weeks. No respect. No respect. The Deion Sanders conundrum, and here we are, we've evolved from power rankings and is the Big 12 better than the Pac-12 conversation to this Deion Sanders conversation.
Yeah.
Like, if you just go look at the Heisman Trophy watch list, and I was looking at one this morning, and Shedeur Sanders was 17th. 17th.
Unbelievers.
On this list. And
Wow.
it's amazing to me. Here is like at NFL.com, Eric Edholm, his Heisman Trophy watch list. And you look at this, and the thing that I don't understand is that we just won't, and of course now I can't get that to load because why would it want to cooperate? We just won't give Shedeur Sanders the respect he deserves.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of people want to say, oh, well, I mean, it's Colorado. They're just getting started. Like, it's 2 games into the year, right? Oh, it's only Nebraska. They're Nebraska. Who cares about Matt Rule and what he's trying to do? Who cares about any of that? Have them beat someone legitimate. And so my question's going to be, what happens when Colorado inevitably loses to like SC or Washington or like one of the best teams in the Pac-12, let's say, but Shedeur balls out for like 400 yards against their defense and it's like some ridiculous shootout, best we've ever seen college football game on the West Coast. Then people are going to go, oh, he lost the game. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about the fact that dude threw for 450 in like 4 touchdowns and they ran for whatever. Like, that's what we're talking about here.
BetMGM.
Yeah, good example.
Heisman Trophy watch list. Number 1, Caleb Williams.
Justified, spot on.
Number 2, Jordan Travis at Florida State. Number 3, Michael Penix, Washington. Number 4, Quinn Ewers at Texas. Number 5, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan.
It's a defense.
Number 6, Bo Nix. Are you serious? You're Drew Aller at Penn State. Sam Hartman at Notre Dame is 8th. And finally, Shedeur Sanders, 9th. Behind Hartman, Aller, Nix, McCarthy, Ewers, Penix, Travis, and Williams. That's wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have him right behind Quinn Ewers there. That's where I'd have him.
I would have Shedeur Sanders. I would have Shedeur Sanders well ahead of Jordan Travis. I think Shedeur Sanders is far outplayed Jordan Travis. I think Michael Penix Jr. should be 2. I think Quinn Ewers should be 3, and I think Shedeur Sanders should be 4.
Yeah.
That J.J. McCarthy is 5th is ridiculous to me.
My fucking ass.
J.J. McCarthy.
Come on.
But it is, I'm a firm believer that you are talking about bias against Deion Sanders. And that is why Shedeur Sanders and Hunter to a lesser extent, because I think it's going to be really difficult for a two-way player. Travis Hunter is well down the list there. He is Joe Milton's 9th. Kyle McCord at Ohio State is 10th. Marvin Harrison, the wide receiver at Ohio State, who's hurt and is going to miss 2 weeks, is 11th. Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma, decent. But is Travis Hunter behind Dylan Gabriel? Is he behind Marvin Harrison? Is he behind Kyle McCord and Joe Milton? Are you out your goddamn mind?
Come on.
Come on now. Tell me that there's not bias involved in that. You're really telling me that there's not bias involved in that.
Look at, just really quick. You look at Colorado's schedule, and we're going to put this thing to bed one way or the other real quick here, right? You get Colorado State this week. All right, cool. They should, you should dominate them. But then what do you get? Oregon, SC, Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington, Utah, right? So you're gonna get Oregon, then you're gonna get USC, right? So that's why I say you're at Oregon, you're home for SC. If SC comes in and hangs 50 on you at your place, you're not that guy, pal. That's not going to be acceptable. Now, if USC comes in and puts 35 up, and you happen to put up 31, I think that's a really respectable performance, right? Because this is supposed to be a team that isn't going to perform. And Deion, just first year, and there's no way that he could ever use the transfer portal to go out and win more than 6 games. No way. So, again, when they win against Colorado State this week and they're 3-0 heading into Oregon, what else would you have had them do?
How is J.J. McCarthy on that list?
It's ridiculous, dude.
Screw you.
He's on that list because he plays at Michigan. That's it.
My God. J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah.
Stop. Adams P.
Right.
Sanders will be a top 3 pick. I would agree with that. Tarrant County boy, yeah. Okay. NE says, I get all of them except JJ is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stephen Smith, I agree with you on the alliance. I also believe that it showed the Pac-12 incompetence on how to run a conference. I also believe I have COVID. Okay, well, I apologize for your ill feelings. That
It is what it is.
I never want anybody to have COVID.
The coronavirus.
Everybody gets a test.
Knock on wood, I've never had it. And
They have the sniffles.
And I hope not to have it. But the alliance, Stephen, I appreciate you. The alliance had nothing to do with the failure of the Pac-12. It was, and do you guys know what the alliance is? It was the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten. And they got together and they said, hey, we're going to schedule, but we're also going to operate on a philosophical level where they were going to put the mental health and well-being of their student. Like, they had all these philosophical tenets that were only memorialized as far as a press release. There was no scheduling agreement on paper like it had. And again, I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong, your opinion's valid. It had nothing to do with the failure of the conference. Did it make the Pac-12 look dumb? Yes, it did. It made them look really foolish. Did that mean they failed? No. They failed for one singular reason: incompetence in everything that they do, whether that's officiating, the way they handled officiating, the way they handled replays, certainly their TV and media rights distribution. The Pac-12 network was a money suck. Larry Scott spent money like it was endless. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things. Again, and I'm not saying you're wrong, and I appreciate the $10. And I really hope you don't have COVID. Mike Smith, ever notice that the Heisman Trophy winner rarely comes from a school with 3 or more losses? Colorado continues to win and Sanders continues to play well. He will rise in the rankings. I don't disagree with that. Jaron Eccles, Sanders is far better than Nix and McCarthy. I think Bo Nix is an enigma. How good is Bo Nix?
It's not college football playoff good. He's,
where in the conference is Bo Nix?
He's probably top 5, I would say. I mean, you're
in a conference loaded with quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix,
I mean, certainly if you look at those guys, obviously, I think you would Shedeur Sanders or Bo Nix.
Shedeur Sanders.
Cam Rising or Bo Nix?
Right now, Bo Nix. Cam Rising's not on the football field. And I want to see what Cam Rising is before we just start saying he's the same old Cam Rising.
DJ Uiagalelei or Bo Nix?
Bo Nix. Even though DJ's played well.
Cam Ward or Bo Nix?
Cam Ward.
I would agree with that. And, I mean, I think that's I think ultimately that's the end of it. I mean, because you're not going to put Rashada or Delora or Bo Nix is a top half of the quarterbacks in this conference. Yeah. He is not Shedeur. He is not Penix. He is not. I think Caleb Williams is the best of the bunch.
I think the difference between Shedeur, Penix, and Williams is their athleticism. I mean, they have the ability to just run away and shake you off of them. I mean, again, and not to say that Caleb Williams hasn't done this, but the highlight tape of Shedeur Sanders against Nebraska, just running away from the pressure of Nebraska and extending the play for what seemed like forever, and then to find a guy in the end zone and do what he was doing. I mean, he played out of his mind, and that's what I think separates those three. A guy like Cam Rising beats you with his mind. Right? I mean, yes, he's athletic, but he's never going to be as highlight reel caliber as those three.
Bo Nix or Drake May at Carolina?
Yeah, I think that's pretty even.
Dude, I think that's really close.
Yeah.
Bo Nix I take Bo Nix over Jordan Travis. Sam Hartman or Bo Nix? Sam Hartman has been pretty freaking impressive.
The thing I like about Sam Hartman is the maturity piece. I trust him to put the ball in a good place pretty much every time. And I'm not saying that Bo Nix is not mature, but there's Sam Hartman's just shows it in a different way. You say, okay, here's Sam, here's the football. Don't turn it over and take us down the field. And that's what he seems to do. And sometimes I feel like Bo Nix tries to do too much with his legs, and sometimes that comes back to get him.
Jalen Daniels at Kansas or Bo Nix? Ooh. Two really good dual threat quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's hard not to go with Daniels there.
Ooh.